Getting the mic set up. Good morning. So, I love that introduction, the word of the week, hospitality. We've been looking at a number of words, a number of different calls to action of how we express being the church with one another this summer. But this morning, I get to teach you all about hospitality. But it's wild because you guys already know so much about this. That's what I've been discovering. Being a new pastor here, it's been this awesome season just to get to know people. But reflexively, we experience this invitation, hey, would you like to come over? Would you like to come into our house? And already, I and my family have been hosted by so many people, and we've been blown away by people's interest in this and then how they follow through with expressing this. And it's just been very, very strong. In our scripture reading this morning, it says to outdo one another in showing honor. So to encourage this sense of competition here in our community, I put together the top 10 of FGMB hospitality homes. All right? So coming in at number 10, we have, no, I'm just kidding. Did you actually think I was going to do that? But it could be fun, right? A little foyer chat. That would be quite a stir. No, we're not going to do that. But just way to go. A+ to all of you. Keep that going. It's an amazing culture of hospitality here within our church. Hebrews 13, verses 1 and 2. Let mutual affection continue. Do not neglect to show hospitality to strangers, for by doing that, some have entertained angels without knowing it. At first glance, I find this to be quite a peculiar verse. I don't know about you, but to me, this is not something I reflect on often, thinking about entertaining angels. Really? Entertaining angels? But there are many Bible stories that literally show this, entertaining angels. In Genesis 18, we read, Abraham sat at the entrance of his tent in the heat of the day. He looked up and saw 3 men standing near him. When he saw them, he ran from the tent entrance to meet them and bowed down to the ground. He said, My Lord, if I find favor with you, do not pass by your servant. Let a little water be brought, and wash your feet, and rest yourselves under the tree. Let me bring a little bread, that you may refresh yourselves, and after that you may pass on, since you have come to your servant. It was from this offer of hospitality that this new chapter opened up in his life, and the blessing of Abraham and Sarah resulted in the promise of their son Isaac. But there are other examples as well of entertaining angels. In the very next chapter, Lot offers safe stay to a couple of these mystery figures, providing them with washing, with rest, and with food. And they turn out to be messengers from the Lord, who return Lot's generosity by protecting his family. And Gideon is another, offering meat and cakes to an unknown visitor before it was revealed that this was actually an angel. So the author of Hebrews certainly has these stories in mind when writing this verse. But I wonder how we might understand this today, this call of entertaining angels. I'll be honest with you, I don't tend to think too much about angels. I wouldn't say that I have a well-developed theology of angels or that they're on my mind often. I'm not saying I don't believe in them, I just don't know. I'm not aware of any angel encounters that I've had in my own life, though I have met people who would say they have had them. I'm not particularly drawn to the popularized imagination of these robed people with wings and halos and harps. But the Bible does have way too many references to angels to discount the whole notion. So I think we do well maybe to hold on to the basics here. In the Bible, angels are characters who are heavenly beings, sent as messengers of God. But when people first become aware of them, so often they appear as strangers. So, the author of Hebrews writes, show hospitality to strangers, for by doing so, some have entertained angels without knowing it. The occurrence of angels helps us to realize and remember that heaven and earth are not separate spaces. They have been tied together through the death and resurrection of Jesus, and one day will be entirely brought together in fullness with the arrival of his kingdom. So today, there is a space of overlap, of heaven and earth being opened up. This space has been opened up of heaven and earth coming together. And one of the surprising ways we encounter this and we participate in this is when we open up spaces of hospitality. Heaven is actually that home of ultimate hospitality that our world is longing to be invited into, to rest in, and there receive this care and fulfillment and belonging. We are told the story of how worn out and unclean travelers will be welcomed by the Father with a robe, a ring, a feast, and embrace. We are told by Jesus, I have prepared a place for you. We are told this final scene of our future, see, the home of God is among mortals. He will dwell with them. They will be his peoples, and God himself will be with them and be their God. As Christians, this is the story that we are living in, not only in a future sense, but already here today. Here, Jesus has opened up a space of heaven and earth coming together. Though I'm not sure of this person's faith perspective, author and restaurateur Will Guidara writes this powerful line in his book, Unreasonable Hospitality. You need to be unreasonable to see a world that doesn't yet exist. You need to be unreasonable to see this world that doesn't yet exist. He sees his role as a restaurant developer not merely as creating an amazing menu and incredible decor, but building an environment and a culture in which people experience care. And all of the details are actually designed towards fulfilling this. As those who are looking toward the coming of Jesus' kingdom, we can have a similar kind of attitude, a similar approach. We are believing already in a world that does not yet have full expression today. But we are working to see spaces opened up that would welcome and already resemble it. As a community of Christians, we can understand ourselves as rehearsing heaven. What if this became simply how we understood the variety of things that we are about, the variety of things we are doing, that really we are rehearsing heaven? As those who have placed their hope in Jesus and are learning to pray his prayer that God's kingdom would come on earth as it is in heaven, we are giving our lives more and more to rehearsing heaven. I'd like to consider a few spaces in which we can do that, to practice the hospitality of heaven. The first space is this one, right here, on a Sunday morning, our worship gathering. What if we had that mentality that every Sunday we gather, all of us together are actually rehearsing heaven? That's what we're really doing here. How would this shape the way that we interact with one another? How would that shape your posture, your preparation as you come into this space, into this time together? Last week, we heard the call to wait on one another. That was an excellent sermon. Thank you, Pastor Kristen. I love that. It's a really important part of our community, waiting on one another. Well, when we think of the work of hospitality, we can understand this term in another way. Like waiters in a restaurant, our job is to wait on one another. I've never been a waiter. Anyone here quickly want to say they've worked in the restaurant industry? As a server, front of house, back of house? Bless you. Thank you for your service there. But I've been thinking about this question this week. What makes for a good waiter? You could go talk to one of these people who had their hands up. They know more than I do. But I imagine it's important that you know the menu and that you are responsive to be able to answer any question that the guest might have. There's a preparation required, a readiness, because there's going to be a variety of scenarios that are presented, and your job is to follow up with service. You need to be warm and engaging and act as the personal element, the face of the restaurant. And at the same time, your role is just to facilitate the guest's stay, not get in the way of that, not override that. Ultimately, you are serving an experience that the guests will feel relaxed, welcomed, cared for, even honored. Can you think of a time that you had a restaurant stay that was like that? It might just be a handful of times in your life where you're like, this was just perfect. And you can go back in your memory and relive that experience. Maya Angelou is credited with this famous line, "People will forget what you do. They will forget what you said, but they will never forget how you made them feel." Hospitality has so much to do with this. It is a feeling in our core of being cared for, welcomed, honored. Here at Fort Garry, every Sunday, we have a group of people who are very intentional about this. I am very impressed by our hosting ministry and how these volunteers go about their ministry. They have some important practical tasks like handing out bulletins, ushering people to fill pews, but they're also very attentive to the relational aspect, warmly greeting people in their handshakes, in their eye contact, in their smiles. They are bestowing honor and being ready to assist people in a variety of next steps to help them to follow Jesus in the life of our community. This is a very important ministry for our church. We already have an incredible team of volunteers, but there's room for more. If you're looking to get involved, this would be a great place. You could sign up to be an official volunteer with a lanyard and on a schedule. But my bigger hope than this plug for this ministry is that we would continue to build this culture in our church so that each of us, every one of us, sees ourselves as part of the hosting ministry. What if that became our mentality, that we have hundreds of people who are part of the hosting ministry? And it's happening on a Sunday, but it's happening actually all throughout the week. We are all part of the hosting ministry at Fort Garry. That every Sunday we come with a readiness for the opportunities God will put before us to greet people, to help them feel welcome and honored, and be curious and responsive to their questions. I've seen this happening already here. God is drawing people here to our church. Are we ready to receive them? Are we ready to walk with them with the prompts the Spirit is placing on their lives of learning how to follow Jesus more? Could we become more and more ready to greet them and walk with them? This hosting and hospitality is important for everyone to experience. People who have been hundreds of times before, they still need to experience it. But it is especially important for people who are new. It seems that every Sunday, there are people here at Fort Garry who are new. New to our church, maybe new to church altogether. Our whole church is called into being hospitable, rehearsing heaven by how we treat people here on a Sunday. So that's one space that we should look to as an opportunity to practice the hospitality of heaven. But another one is our homes. In the culture that the Bible was written in, hospitality was one of the highest values. Everyone knew about this. And once our eyes see it, you can read through the New Testament, and this context of homes and tables and meals will show up on just about every page. So much of the discovery of Jesus and discipleship after Jesus occurred alongside dinner. So was that just their culture? Is that just a cultural thing? Or could it be that open homes and shared meals are integral to deep Christ-centered community? that these things have to go together. The first community that was filled with the Spirit quickly fell into this script of rehearsing heaven. We read about it in Acts chapter 2. All who believed were together and had all things in common. They would sell their possessions and goods and distribute the proceeds to all as any had need. Day by day, as they spent much time together in the temple, they broke bread at home and ate their food with glad and generous hearts, praising God and having the goodwill of all the people. And day by day, the Lord added to their number those who were being saved. For the first Christians, following Jesus had impacts, first and foremost, on how they understood their time, their homes, their food, their finances, and possessions. They saw all of these things as things God had given them to share generously with others. And the result was the rapid spread of the gospel. I believe this remains true today. Whatever home looks like for each of you, and it's worth noting that at Fort Garry, we have homes that are palaces and homes that are pod apartments and everything in between. But are you seeing home as a primary context for following Jesus? This is not a separate compartment of your life. This is the primary context for following Jesus. It has impacts on our home. It is a main stage for rehearsing heaven. So open your door, open your fridge, open your dish cupboard, and for some, maybe even most challenging, open your schedule to invite people in. When you get down to this, not just as an idea, but as a practice, you will discover that hospitality is actually complicated. It's not just automatic and simple. It stirs up many of the social dynamics that we have flowing through our culture. One of those is that we tend to want to present our lives in the best light. And when we open up the door, when we pull back the curtain, we are letting people in to see what's really going on the other side. When we're too caught up in presenting, we will struggle to be present. I would say it's a good thing to be intentional, to prepare, to remove clutter and clean up in order that guests would feel comfortable. But this can also go to excess. If the amount of polish leads to a home that looks like no one lives there, you might be doing it wrong. With the ministry of hospitality, it's not just about letting someone into your house, it's about letting someone into your life. They get to see some of what life looks like for you. So let them see it. Let them see some of your life, your actual, real life. Not just the carefully curated, polished version. Please, let there be some mess. It's a relief, because I've got mess in my house, and it's sometimes confusing. When I go to someone else's house, I'm like, wow, these people, their life is just perfect. Similarly, I don't think better hospitality is correlated to a bigger or fancier home. If the guests are afraid to sit because all the furniture looks untouched, or use the fine china for fear of chipping a dish, then these things are actually interfering with the goal of hospitality. I'm not trying to come down on anyone who here has a nice house or has nice stuff. My concern is for those who might think that they need to get to this point before they're ever qualified for the ministry of hospitality. Whatever your setup, whatever your situation, your actual life today is the one that God is wanting to open up in the ministry of hospitality. Don't push that too far down the road that you need to someday arrive at this point before you can begin sharing hospitality. As we open up our doors and our lives in this way, the Spirit begins to shake up a lot of things that are embedded in our culture, our values of control. But as we release these, we end up receiving the things that we've really been looking for. Here are some examples. I've seen this scenario many times now, where a couple has worked hard to build a nice home and raise a family, but now today they find themselves as empty nesters. And now the halls echo, and the home sometimes feels quite empty. But then they encounter a group of young adults from the church who are looking for a place to gather, a place that has better than their single thrift store couch and paper plates. And the couple invites them in for a meal, and then they keep going, and they begin meeting in the home for meals and fellowship and prayer. And as they share life together, they find in each other what they've been looking for. Or those who have been serving in our refugee settlement ministry. After working through all of the paperwork, a mountain, and then the 1,001 things that a family needs when they start their life over in Canada, these volunteers may be surprised by the amount of hours that they've needed to give. But at the same time, they have found a deep level of purpose and fulfillment, especially because so many of these people have become like family. Or likely the most common example in our church is life groups. I've already heard from so many who are in life groups that have journeyed together for many, many years, and throughout that gone through some really challenging circumstances together. Certainly there were challenges to push through. Logistical things like, do we really need one more commitment on the calendar? How are we going to figure out the childcare? When it's our turn to host, how much are we going to need to hide away? When it's our turn to share, how honest are we going to be about what's really going on right now? But again and again, I've heard stories of how these friendships have gone deep to be the listening ears, loving eyes, and caring hands of Christ to one another. Even right now, I know of a few life groups who are out camping together, who aren't here this morning because they are living out this level of community and of hospitality in tents and in trailers, out camping together. I love that. If you're not already part of a life group, I want to give a quick plug to this essential ministry of our church. More than just an optional program, I would describe life groups as an essential layer to what it means to be the church. As we're exploring the work of one anothering this summer, we need to realize that there are many practical constraints to just how far these expressions can go on a Sunday, because there's hundreds of people here and it's limited time. But when you enter into smaller and deeper community, you get into a space of giving and receiving these expressions that can be much more active, much more meaningful. This is a whole other level of what it means to be the church together. And without it, you're kind of just scratching the surface. This fall, we will have campaigns for new life groups starting up at our church. And if you're curious about this, please come talk with me. Talk with others who are part of a life group. We want to continue to open up spaces for people to experience this kind of community. As we open up our lives to the ministry of hospitality, we realize that we can participate in this space between heaven and earth. And as we do that, we will see another space opening up. Let's go back to Hebrews 13. Let mutual affection continue. Do not neglect to show hospitality to strangers, for by doing that, some have entertained angels without knowing it. In this sermon series on one anothering, we are looking at the variety of ministry expressions that believers are called to share with one another. But this ministry of hospitality might be seen differently. It's actually pointed to another place. It's pointed towards strangers. In both Hebrews 13 and Romans 12, hospitality to strangers. So then shouldn't we distinguish that as more of an outward-looking mission and evangelism kind of exercise? Again, hospitality blurs the lines and it opens up a space between. Just look at the flow of these two ideas. let mutual affection continue. Show hospitality to strangers. And what do we see in between these two things? Hospitality. Hospitality is a transforming space that sees strangers brought into the bonds of mutual affection to actually become part of this one another. When we open our doors to strangers, we are operating in a hopeful, aspirational view of who these people will become. We get to see through the eyes the hope of Jesus. Jesus' words echo in our hearts. I have prepared a place for you. And so we roll up our sleeves. We put on the towel just like our Lord to wait on strangers like they are honored guests, because this is how Jesus sees them. As the band comes up to lead us in one final song this morning, I invite you to pray with me. King Jesus, our host, we thank you for your welcoming love that met us when we were once strangers. You have opened the door and ushered us in and bestowed incredible honor on us. I pray that you would shape us to not only be guests, but to be servants for your banquet. Already your kingdom is spilling into this world, so may our church be a space to receive and represent this. May our homes be a space to receive and represent this. And in whatever setting, may our hearts be a space to receive and represent this. Amen.